Look at the monuments we build for our leaders. We carve them in flawless white stone, strip away their human imperfections, and remember them almost exclusively for their soaring rhetoric. We treat them as superhuman figures, morally incapable of the failings of ordinary people. But the historical record rarely matches the marble. When hard data catches up to the mythology, whether it's the raw audio of the Watergate smoking gun transcripts, or genetic testing confirming Warren G. Harding's secret daughter, or the 1998 Nature DNA study on Thomas Jefferson, the flawless facade cracks. We demand our presidents act as absolute moral paragons. Yet inside the Oval Office, the reality often involves sprawling secret affairs and deeply embedded corruption. Political scientist James Fiffner argues that this creates a dangerous psychological trap. We are terrified to examine the flaws of our historical heroes because we fear that acknowledging their mistakes will destroy our trust in government altogether. Shattering the myth of the flawless leader reveals the functional, often hidden mechanics of how power is actually wielded. It allows us to study the presidency as a human office rather than a divine one. By breaking down the anatomy of these historical scandals, we can see exactly how far political institutions will go to protect a powerful myth from human reality. The foundation of a successful cover-up relies on a psychological survival tactic known as personal compartmentalization. Take Thomas Jefferson. He was the brilliant architect of the Declaration of Independence, a man who built his entire public philosophy on the concept of human freedom. At the exact same time, DNA evidence confirms he maintained a multi-decade sexual relationship with Sally Hemings, an enslaved woman he legally owned. John F. Kennedy operated with a similar detachment between his public ideals and his private actions. The sheer, staggering volume of his hidden affairs required a massive logistical effort to keep quiet. Those secrets carried immense practical risks. Kennedy's relationships included Judith Exner, a woman with direct, established ties to organized crime figures. The President of the United States was quietly sharing a bed with the mafia. Warren G. Harding fathered a child outside his marriage with Mann Britton. To keep the public blind to this fact, a vast network extending from his immediate family and the Secret Service all the way to presidential historians actively suppressed the truth for generations. A leader's private double life never exists in a vacuum. It forces the people around them, staffers, agents, and advisors, to transition from public servants into active participants in a historical cover-up. The psychological dexterity required to ignore a private scandal often bleeds into public policy. If a president can maintain an interior world where a hidden daughter or a secret liaison simply doesn't exist, they are already equipped to deny the reality of a political bribe or a systemic betrayal. We trace this escalation through the Teapot Dome scandal, a scheme hatched in Washington, D.C. The administration quietly orchestrated corrupt land deals targeting valuable naval oil reserves stationed at Elk Hills, California, and Teapot Dome, Wyoming. Interior Secretary Albert Fall conducted secret negotiations to lease these government lands to private oil magnates in exchange for large sums of cash. He was caught, making him the first cabinet official in American history to go to prison. When the capacity for elite denial crosses the line from personal embarrassment into public financial corruption, the cover-up directly threatens the structural integrity of the government itself. Every presidential cover-up eventually faces a breaking point. It happens the exact second that institutional denial is outmaneuvered by raw, physical evidence. This chart shows the audio waveform of cassette E1, better known as the Nixon smoking gun tape. Recorded just 6 days after the Watergate break-in, it captures the president explicitly ordering his staff to use the CIA to call off the FBI's investigation. It took only 6 days to capture Richard Nixon's crime on audio tape. It took over 200 years for genetic testing to finally expose Thomas Jefferson's long-denied lineage. Whether it takes days or centuries, objective data will inevitably outlast and dismantle even the most heavily fortified institutional cover-up. When definitive evidence breaks through the myth, it sends a shockwave through our collective historical memory. The public reaction usually splits into two extremes. Some people want to entirely tear down the leader's legacy, while others desperately cling to conspiracy theories, constructing elaborate excuses to protect the hero they thought they knew. This deep polarization is dangerous. When we expect our presidents to be flawless, we set the electorate up for extreme, paralyzing cynicism the moment those leaders inevitably fail the moral test. Demanding faultless heroes actively prevents the public from seeing the complicated, deeply compromised mechanics of how real leadership actually functions. The ultimate reality of the American system is that democratic politics practically guarantees our leaders will never be complete moral paragons. Identifying a president as human allows for a clear-eyed evaluation of their actions. It becomes possible to acknowledge a leader's personal perplexity while still demanding accountability for their official crimes. By abandoning the expectation of superhuman perfection, citizens can stop waiting for mythical saviors and instead focus their energy on enforcing real, systemic accountability. The health of our system depends on seeing these figures at eye level. A mature democracy can preserve its monuments as long as it is willing to lower their towering pedestals.